The Michigan Soybean Promotion Committee is proud to offer the following soybean production video featuring Dr. Christy Sprague of Michigan State University.
So some of the challenges that we've had in weed control have really led to the development of new herbicide-resistant soybean technologies. And the main reason for that is we've got a lot more herbicide resistance issues, and the cost and the ability to identify new herbicides has become more of a challenge. So behind us, we basically have a soybean trait demonstration, and in here you'll see that we have kind of our typical non-GMO soybeans that growers have grown forever without any herbicide resistant traits. And then obviously the number one beans that are grown are Roundup Ready soybeans. Behind that we have Liberty Link soybeans. Those are beans that have been out probably last eight years or so. And then we start seeing some of the newer technologies. We have Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans, which were first available in Michigan to use this year. And then behind that we have the Enlist soybean traits, which we're looking at possibly seeing in the 2018 or 2019 field season. And then behind that we have the Balanced GT soybeans. And we'll spend a little time talking about each one of these technologies as we go across looking at some of the different herbicides applied. So we've got these different soybean traits out here, and as we go through we're going to look at some of the different herbicides that we applied across from them. So the very first one we have is glyphosate, and in this case we use Roundup Power Max. And if you look back you can see that there's actually several of the different soybean traits that are surviving. So for example, Roundup Ready 2 Extend, Enlist, and the Balanced GT soybeans all are able to tolerate glyphosate. So again, that trait's incorporated into a lot of these different herbicides. This plot right here we have sprayed Liberty or glufosinate. As you look at some of these different soybean traits, you can see many of these different soybeans are killed. For example, the non-GMO soybeans are not going to tolerate Liberty. Roundup Ready soybeans are not going to tolerate Liberty. The Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans, which are further back, are also not going to tolerate Liberty. The two soybean traits that we do have that have Liberty resistance or glufosinate resistance are Liberty Link soybeans and also the Enlist soybeans. So the next herbicide that we have out here is Extendamax. Extendamax is actually dicamba. There are 3 different dicamba products that are actually registered for use now in Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans. And with dicamba, most of us have seen dicamba injury on soybeans. Usually we see cupping, but if we were to spray a full rate, you can see the twisting that we see on all these different soybean traits. As you look through here, all of our soybeans are dead except for the Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans. So we only have one soybean variety or trait that has tolerance to dicamba. So the next herbicide we have out here is 2,4-D, and in this case we have the choline salt of 2,4-D. This is the primary 2,4-D component that's going to be used on Enlist soybeans. Enlist soybeans have tolerance to 2,4-D. They also have tolerance to glufosinate, and also, which was Liberty, and glyphosate, which we saw earlier. When we look at 2,4-D, it's a growth regulator like dicamba, but if you actually look at our Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans, which are dicamba tolerant, they are not tolerant to 2,4-D. The only soybean trait that would be tolerant to 2,4-D is the Enlist soybeans. So the next herbicide we have out here is one that's commonly used in corn. It's called Status. It's actually a mixture of dicamba plus a other herbicide called diflufenzapyr, which actually kind of makes the dicamba work better. The main purpose of having this plot out here is to show that even though it has dicamba in it, the Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans are not going to be resistant to Status. So if you look back, you can see all of the soybeans are pretty much hurt. We may be seeing a little bit less hurt on the Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans, but those soybeans are not going to amount to much as far as yield, and they're going to eventually die. So what I have on both sides of me is actually Balanced Bean. Balanced Bean is isoxaflutol, or an HPPD inhibitor, so it's those herbicides that bleach. Balance is commonly used in corn. Well, there's actually a new soybean trait called Balanced GT soybeans, which has tolerance to Balance. So if you look from a pre-emergent side, you can kind of see some yellowing or bleaching on many of the soybean traits except for the very back one, which is our Balanced GT soybeans. On this side of me, you can see our post-emergence application. Obviously, we see most of those soybeans have been stunted as well as turning white, and Those soybean traits are not tolerant to balance, but you can see back there, there's a nice green strip, and those are our balanced GT soybeans. Balanced GT soybeans are also resistant to glyphosate or Roundup, and then in the near future, they will be incorporating glufosinate tolerance or Liberty tolerance in them. But we'll be seeing some of these coming out in the next couple of years. So currently we have 4 of these 6 traits available to Michigan growers. The 2 that we'll be seeing in the future are the Enlist soybeans and then also the Balanced GT soybeans. But this year was our first year for Extend soybeans, and really a lot of these different technologies are very important as we start to try to manage herbicide-resistant weeds. And with the help of the Michigan Soybean Promotion Committee, we've been able to look at several of these different technologies and how to manage things like glyphosate-resistant mare's tail or horseweed, glyphosate-resistant Palmer amaranth, multiple resistant water hemp. So a lot of the research that we have done looking at some of these different technologies is really to benefit the soybean growers, and we really like to thank the Michigan Soybean Promotion Committee for the continued support.